Welcome to another episode of the BJJ Fightgear Lockdown Talks. My name is Misha and I'm here with my co-host Bram. Today we're speaking to Paul Sutherland, a former MMA champion, UFC judge, and also the coach of UFC fighters, as well as numerous Jiu Jitsu champions, world champions, UFC champions, and especially at the moment focusing on kids Jiu Jitsu and kids MMA, which he's building out a very successful team in the UK. Well, Paul, welcome. Happy to be talking to you today.
Thank you very much, guys. Happy to be here.
So we spoke about this earlier. How is your life during the lockdown like right now? We actually called 2 weeks ago, but how are things developing for you now?
Yeah, it's pretty much the same, to be honest. Obviously, we're not opened up. My academy's not opened up. We're still waiting on the government sort of guidelines to give us a date where we can start to open our facility again. Personally, I've been doing a lot of like one-to-one sort of training with people, like outdoors and stuff, you know, when the weather's good.
Right.
But apart from that, obviously, we're not running public classes or anything as yet. I'm hoping that something will happen at some point this month, if not next month, and then we can get ourselves back to opening our facility, you know.
And there's no like planning being communicated from the government, like when they are gonna open up the gyms completely?
No, well, they've opened up obviously restaurants and hotels and bars and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And hairdressers, but we're still waiting the gyms are still waiting to reopen. You know, I personally don't see. I know I can govern the amount of people coming into my gym and space them out and stuff, you know, but you can't really do that when people have been drinking in the pub and, you know, they're shoulder to shoulder and stuff like that, you know.
Yeah,
so
a bit hard.
It doesn't make sense to me, but
we don't have a strong enough lobby going on there, I think.
That's the thing. Yeah. We need something a bit stronger, I think.
Yeah. But you can do the one-on-one coaching outside. Yeah.
Yeah. I've been doing some one-on-one coaching. Obviously, I've have some pro fighters as well, which I've been like doing some mitt work drills for them and stuff outdoors, obviously, because I've got a few guys with pending upcoming fights as well. So obviously they still need to train, and that's how they earn their living as well, you know. So obviously I have to do my bit as well just to support them.
Yeah. And for the kids, do you guys do like online classes or?
Yeah, the only thing we do for the kids at the moment, we do some outdoor fitness classes to keep their fitness levels up.
Yeah.
So I've been doing that a couple of times a week with obviously my kids jiu-jitsu squad. You know, we're doing a lot of like shuttle sprints and, you know, a lot of cardiovascular exercises outdoors, keeping them fit and energized and motivated as well, which is the most important thing, you know.
Right. Yeah, definitely. And hopefully they will keep motivated and come back after the lockdown restrictions are lifted.
Yeah, I hope so. The parents of the kids are very driven as well. They support their kids through obviously through all of this, and you know they all got mats at home and they're all training at home and stuff. And they send me their videos, you know, and say, Paul, what about this? Is this technique good and stuff like that, you know? So they're still training at home, you know, and they're pretty good, you know, very motivated, which is great.
Yeah, Bram, you actually have some experience, maybe not comparable to Paul's, but you have some experience in teaching kids also in Jiu Jitsu. I'll leave the word to you on that topic then.
You currently have like a really successful kids program. Have the kids classes always been like a big part of your gym?
Not initially, to be honest. I've been teaching kids for a long time, but my main focus, they've brought into my main focus when I basically took over Trojan Gloucester, which was from 2015. So it's really like the last sort of 5 years I've really focused on my kids program.
Yeah.
And obviously, you know, it's been really a really good success. And, you know, I find I can really relate to the kids, and obviously the parents, you know, respect me as well, you know. So it's a good thing, you know, to work with obviously the kids and obviously the parents too, you know. But it's just really took off really recently. Probably the last sort of 3 to 4 years has just blown up my kids programs, you know, which I teach obviously jiu-jitsu, and I teach a MMA curriculum as well for the kids.
Yeah.
So
And
they do striking as well.
when you started focusing on the kids classes, did you already have like a curriculum or a plan in mind, or did it kind of grow into the setup that you have right now?
I already had sort of a basis of a curriculum anyway.
Okay.
And then sort of from obviously training my own kids as well,
Yeah.
I've kind of like brought that on board, you know, and that obviously helps, you know. And yeah, I've just had and like every year that we go through this, I always evolve in techniques with them and teaching drills and, you know, anything to keep them sort of, because you can't sort of teach them the same way you would teach adults, you know, they haven't got the same attention span or whatever. But obviously you have to make the sessions a little bit shorter, a little bit more intense, and then obviously have the rewards at the end, like the games and stuff, you know, so to keep them, you know, motivated to be able to train and, you know, and do well.
Yeah, so. Yeah, I think that's one of the hardest parts with the kid classes. And also one thing I find really interesting is like, how do you keep, especially the younger kids, how do you make sure that they keep on training with you, that they don't leave after 1 year because they get bored of it? Or how do you make sure that they kind of like progress throughout the ranks and that you can actually start teaching them jiu-jitsu?
Well, usually what I do, I have several classes which you start off in a beginner's class, and then you graduate to like the intermediate class, and you graduate to my elite class. So you've always got something to look ahead rather than having all the kids in one class, all different levels, which I did in the past, to be fair. And like now I actually set my classes up so the elite kids only train with the elite kids, and if you want to get onto the elite program, you have to, you know, have a certain requirements and skill set to be able to do that. So it's like almost like, you know, like when you grade kids and you give them their stripes and belts and stuff, it's something for them to look forward to and to work towards to actually get better. And yes, you do have it's not for everybody, obviously, you know, you can't, everybody that walks through your gym is not going to be a success. They might not like it, you know? But I find our success rate is really high, and the turnover is, you know, I get a lot of kids join in and they tend to stay, to be fair. Obviously when I get to teenage years, you know, different distractions and stuff, I don't know whether they're going to stay, you know, but the younger ones, which I do, like I start off with an under sevens program, and my under sevens program, they actually do with their parents. So they actually do the class with their parents, and then they do the drills with their parents. So the parents stay engaged, because sometimes if the kids come into a class, they haven't got a lot of confidence. A lot of the kids I teach have either been bullied or, you know, lack self-esteem and stuff like that. So I try to make them as comfortable as possible in that environment, you know, rather than like being with kids who are on my elite program, which are frightened to death probably.
They destroy them.
I'd rather they come in with their parent, do a little bit with their parent, give them some confidence, and then they can gravitate to the other classes once they sort of get used to the movements and, you know, being in those positions as well, you know. So and obviously with that, the parents are learning as well, and they can train at home with them.
And do all the kids who start at your academy, do they start with their parents, or if they are like already of a little bit older age, they can?
If they're a little bit older, I will start them off just in a regular class. But it's the under sevens is the ones that
they all start.
I find you know, obviously with the intenseness of jiu-jitsu and, you know, the grappling side of it, you know, some of them get quite intimidated, and like the first time you get mounted and you can't breathe, and do you know what I mean? I find it's better to do it with the parent for the under sevens, and then the older ones will just come into a regular class, and then obviously the parents are there just to watch them, and then after a while the parents just drop them off. I teach the kids and they come and pick them up, you know.
Nice.
I guess on two sides of the spectrum, you can have kids that are either maybe getting into martial arts and jiu-jitsu in specific to get more confidence. Maybe they get bullied or things like that. And on the other hand, you have kids that are there to kind of blow off steam. They're just you can't handle them. Does the way you set it up help to? Because I can imagine if you put those together in a class, the first category gets a bit overwhelmed by the second one. I can imagine if you first put them with the parents, that already helps a lot to deal with that kind of problem.
It definitely does. I find it's really successful. The parents enjoy it as well, you know, and obviously some of the parents have actually signed up and they're doing jiu-jitsu themselves now in my adult class, you know. But it kind of works, you know. But yeah, it's really good, and it's great to see the interaction between the parent and the child,
Yeah.
And it's fantastic. And the parents always come and thank me and say, "Oh, he's got so much more confidence." Not to say that they can all sort of defend themselves, but if they got confidence in, just general everyday going to school or,
right.
Having to maybe do a talk, in front of people, at least you've expressed yourself a little bit through martial arts. I think, things like that will help.
Yeah. And is there something specific you do to like boost their confidence in except besides like just giving them like a safe environment and making them feel comfortable? Is there something else you do that kind of gives them the confidence?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if kids are doing really well, you give them a lot of praise, because you have to do that. You have to reward sort of good technique, good behavior. And conversely, if they're not listening and stuff, they don't do the games and stuff at the end. So I always have, we work for half an hour, 45 minutes, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And then at the end, if you've done really well, technique's done really well, we do the games at the end, and you can do the games with your parents. So that kind of works as well for the younger ones, So
okay. That's good. Good to hear. And especially like with those younger ones, I think at least I find it really hard to have a balance between like technique and games, because eventually you want them to do like an actual technique and not only the games. Do you progress towards that, or because you say you have the games at the end of the class? So I imagine that at the start of the class you do like some kind of technique.
Yeah, we do definitely do technique, but within the technique you can do like a game within the technique. You've got to pass your parents' guard. Okay, if you do that, you get like 1 point or something like that. So you give them the technique, and then you kind of like make it into a game, but within that, you're actually showing them real jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. Okay, that's
so
nice.
It's just very, very tricky, and it's not for everybody. I've seen many a coach try to teach kids and they can't do it.
Yeah, you need to be really creative to come up with
and different methods, because each kid is different. You've got to have different methods of being able to control the kids and making sure they're doing what they should be doing, and attention span. So it's really full on job.
Yeah, I can imagine. And for your elite group of kids, from what age is that group, and what does the training for them look like?
Basically it's competition training. It's fairly serious because they all compete to a high level. Most of them have been training with me a minimum of probably 2.5 to 3 years, so they compete from white belt all the way through to like yellow or orange. And I just run it like a adult competitive competition class, basically. And they're in that class for a reason, because they've already competed or have the desire to do well. So I do push them, but again, they
know what to
really
expect.
Respond to that really well.
That's really nice that you can, like within 2 years, you can kind of build it up to a point where you can actually push them a bit more and really have them be ready for competition.
But by the time you've been teaching them for probably a year plus 18 months, whether they want to compete or not. You know what level they're going to be at. So obviously I've got kids who have been training with me for 5 years, and they don't want to compete, and that's absolutely fine. They just want to train the martial art, which is absolutely no problem to me whatsoever. But then obviously you've got the other ones who do really want to achieve something and they compete, and some of them compete in Jiu Jitsu, and they compete in MMA as well. They do no-gi, grappling, everything really. So, it's a really good competitive class, but they're all a team. It's not like it's all individuals. They're all actually a team, and when one does well, they're all rewarding and saying, "Oh, that's great, you did fantastic." So we've got a really good team environment. Even with the kids, and that crosses over to my adult teams as well.
And does MMA start at the same age as the jiu-jitsu classes? The kids MMA?
So I've got a MMA curriculum for kids, which I've got a belt system as well. So every 6 months or so, they will have to sort of graduate and take a belt, like a grading. And I find that works well, rather than just giving kids technique. This is a punch, this is a kick, and hitting some pads. But we got I have a set structure for them, and then obviously they get that grading syllabus. I give each sort of belt system to the parents, so they got that as a reference. So at home when they're practicing, they can just call out, right, you need to be doing jab, cross, low kick, switch knee or something, so they've got all the techniques there which they can call out for their child, when they're practicing at home.
Is it a different type of kid signing up for Jiu-Jitsu or MMA classes, or do you see a lot of cross-training between the two?
It's 90% do Jiu-Jitsu, do the MMA as well.
Right.
About
wow.
90%.
Oh, that's a lot.
So
That's awesome.
like my kids that I teach, they're obviously Jiu-Jitsu is our first protocol for the kids, but many of my kids are really skilled strikers as well.
That's awesome.
Because they've been training at the striking the same length of time as what they've been training Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah.
The future is crazy. These
yes, scary as well.
And talking a little bit about the future. So you have the kids classes. Do you already have some kids who went through your whole program and are now like competing with the adults?
Yeah, I have two of my kids who I've been training since I think they've been probably about 7 years old. They're coming up to two of them are 15 now.
Oh, nice.
So they'll be crossing over to juveniles.
Yeah.
So so they'll be training with the adults as soon as they're 16.
Yeah.
Which is this year. So that's going to be very interesting as well. They've done one or two classes with the adults, and a lot of my adults can't believe how skillful they are for so young, but they've been training since they were, small. So it's really good. I got three lads at the moment who are just getting ready to cross over to juvenile. So whenever they get to the 16, they'll be juvenile blue belts,
Yeah, that is really good. And they're competing as well?
System. Yeah, they compete in MMA and Jiu-Jitsu, yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah. That's going to be scary for the adult classes.
Yeah. A lot of my adults, especially my pro fighters, have said as soon as these kids get to sort of, 18, they'll all retire because they won't be able to hang with them in the gym.
Yeah. Well, that's a really good sign. I think it's a successful program then.
Yeah.
I've at least here in the Netherlands, but I've also seen places in the UK where the adult jiu-jitsu classes are they still have the upper hand, or those schools don't even have kids classes yet. Maybe could you describe a little bit what it means for a school to, if you also want to grow and you want to make it a full-time thing, what does it mean for the school, for the academy to have kids classes?
Yeah, I think it obviously for any academy, it's the future of our sport, whether it's just in martial arts or whether it's competing. The kids is where it's at, and so like in 10 years time, those kids will be taken over from the guys who I got competing now, as the adults, they'd be the ones taking over the gym, and that's the way I see it. Anybody who runs an academy, I think it's well worth your while, just for your legacy really, to have kids involved with what you're doing. It's I think it's really important sort of cog in the machine really to have the kids there,
Yeah, and if you look at the distribution, so like, is it a lot easier to get 100 or 200 kids in your school than it is to get so many adults, or how is that kind of split between kids and adults?
In my academy at the moment, I've probably got 60-40 split in terms of the kids. So I've got more kids, just about more kids than adults.
Yeah.
But you do get the odd ones that drop off as well. What I find with the adults is that they cannot commit to, apart from my professionals, a lot of them can't commit to training like every night. So a lot of my adults don't actually compete jiu-jitsu. They just want to train the martial art because they understand that you need to put a hell of a lot of time if you're going to compete and do well in competition. Obviously, you've got to be honest with yourself. If you're not prepared to put all the time in, or you've not got the ability to put all the time in, or because of work or family and stuff like that, then obviously you're probably better just maybe doing local tournaments every now and again, or just training the martial art and enjoying it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, you to move on to another topic that you are specialized in. You're a UFC judge, also coming from your own MMA background. It might be interesting for people to also hear about that. Could you maybe briefly describe how you got up in MMA and how that evolved into your career as a ref?
Okay, right. So I've basically been doing martial arts for most of my life. I started off with traditional kung fu and kickboxing, which is 1986, I believe. I think I started, and then after doing that for about 10 years, 12 years, first sort of watched, I think it was UFC 1, I think I watched, or UFC 2, something like that. So I watched it, and I was just mesmerized by Royce Gracie and what he did, and because I didn't even know what Jiu Jitsu was or grappling, to be honest with you. So obviously from seeing that, my mindset totally changed on what is real martial arts and what isn't. So personally, from there, I went to a local Japanese jiu-jitsu school, actually, because there was no Brazilian jiu-jitsu around in my area at that time. So I went to that school, got my ass handed to me, to be honest, when it went to the ground, because they did a lot of judo-based techniques, So from there, I just thought, I've got to learn this. So I trained with them for probably 4 years, something like that. And then obviously, because I had the striking background and I had a little bit of grappling, I decided to start competing amateur MMA, which was like one of the first sort of organizations to do that in this country. I was like one of the first guys to do it. So I did a few amateur fights, and then I just decided to go professional and just give it a try and just see how I, just learn on the job, really. And that was with, in the scheme of things now, very minimal training. If I knew sort of now, then it would be a lot different story, But so I always wanted to challenge myself, and it was nothing about, there was no sort of Facebook and stuff like that where you could just say, oh, look at me, I've done this. And it was just literally just going there and just challenging yourself. And I've always been the same when I competed in kickboxing and stuff as well. All I wanted to do was just challenge myself and just see how far I could go with it. Did that for, I think I took my first pro MMA fight in 2001. And then due to a knee injury and several knee injuries I've had, surgeries, I had to quit in 2005. So it was like a 4 to 5 year sort of journey of me actually competing in MMA. So from there, I would say I actually won the Cage Warriors title. I was the first Cage Warriors lightweight champion. That was in 2004, I believe. And to be honest, if it was now, I wouldn't win it now because I would be literally too small for a lightweight. I didn't cut any weight at all. I literally just walked off the scale into the cage, because I walk around at that weight anyway. So if it was now, I'd probably be fighting at like 135 or something, as opposed to 155. So I did that. And so I didn't really have that sort of decorated career, because to me, it wasn't a career. It was just like, I just wanted to go and compete and just see how far, what I could do, competing against some real good guys. 2005, I had an ACL injury. I ruptured my ACL in my last fight, my last professional fight, and kind of like my knees never been the same since the surgery and stuff. So I thought it was only honest for me to just not put myself in that position where I'm going to compete with guys who are 100% healthy. At that time, I was in my 30s as well, so I wasn't really going to go anywhere with it, because I'm probably too old anyway. So I decided to get into coaching. At the time, Trojan was owned by a guy called Charlie Joseph, who was my head coach. So after I transitioned from being a fighter, I started doing some coaching, just helping the pro fighters. So I started coaching, a little bit of coaching, 2 nights a week. Didn't get paid, didn't want to get paid. I just wanted to just help the guys. And then I first had an inclination that the UFC were looking for some officials, and that was in 2009, I believe. Yeah, I think it was 2009. So I put an application across through a friend who knew Mark Ratner, funny enough. And I had to do like a video sort of interview. So I had to do like a video interview and send my CV over what I've done, what I knew about MMA, how long I've trained Jiu Jitsu, and everything else, everything that you've done in my martial arts career. So I sent that over, and then I got invited to do my first UFC. I think it was 2011. Just trying to think which event it was. I think it was in Manchester. So obviously I go there. I do the training as well before.
Yeah.
And you go. The next thing, you're sat in the seat, cage side, and you've got a pen in your hand with the scorecards. And it's very nerve-wracking, to be honest with you, especially the first time that you do it.
Yeah.
And then all the guys that you've sort of seen on TV, they're all walking around, and you see them all day, and in the fighter hotel and stuff. So it is very daunting, and obviously you need to be in a position where you're not a fanboy, taking pictures with people and stuff like that. You've got to disengage yourself from. You need to disengage yourself away from like those fighters that you see on TV and the personalities and stuff like that, and you've got to be really focused on doing that judging assignment. So after my first event, I think I only did about 2 fights. What people don't realize is that they have probably 6 judges per event, and you just get rotated. So you might only do 2 fights, or you might do 5 or 6. You won't do any more than 6 on the night. And they usually have a 12 fight or 13 fight card anyway. Yeah. So a lot of people think it's just 3 judges and that's it. No, there's about 6. Sometimes I've worked with up to 8 to an event.
Yeah.
So So I've been working for them. Started in 2010 or 2011, and then obviously with my coaching, I took a head coach's role for Trojan. And one of my fighters actually got into the UFC, which was Shay Mills. So he got into the UFC, I think it was 2012 or 2013, something like that. So obviously, if he got into the UFC and I was his head coach, I couldn't judge because it's a conflict of interest. So I had to step away from the UFC for 3 years while he was in the UFC. And then after, his sort of UFC career was over and he moved on to other things, I reapplied and they said, yes, you're quite welcome to come back.
You also can't ref other people's fights during that kind of period if you don't ref his fight.
Because obviously if, say, for example, I've got a fighter in the UFC and I'm his coach, what's to say that somebody I'm judging might be in his division, and you can see the conflict of interest, which I totally get. Even though, I would be totally honest and judge the fight on its merits, but I can see how things could look a little bit suspect,
Yeah, that makes sense.
Oh, he's his coach, and now he's judging like one of his fighters or a potential fighter he's got coming in the same division, or same camp, or So I totally get it. So obviously I had to step away in order for my fighter to fulfill his career. Okay, he went there, did really well. And then when he came out of the UFC, I obviously reapplied, had the conversations again, and they said yes, happy to come back in. So I've been there ever since then. So I still work for them now.
So I don't really have an idea how judging the MMA fights works. I've seen sometimes photos of the notes and like a list with some numbers and some score they fill in. But how does that work?
Well, again, a lot of people will look at a fight and say, "Oh, because he's coming forward, this is he's won."
His face is bloodied up, so he's the loser.
It's a lot more complicated than that. There's a set criteria, and you have to follow that criteria. Every judge has to go through it. So a judge is sat there with their certain criteria. Also, judging is, it's your interpretation of what you see, and what you do see. Obviously, the judges have sat 3 different points in the cage, so you can have 3 different perspectives on the fight.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Just by where you're sat, because we're not sat in the same position. A lot of people think you might be all sat in the same. On the same table, on the same row, but you're not. You're distributed around the actual cage at 3 different points.
Okay.
So what one judge may see, the other one may not. So obviously everything is sort of like your interpretation of what happens within that fight.
And are there like specific things you need to pay attention to? Of course, you have to look at the fight and see what happens. And like, how do you score a fight?
Yeah, I mean, there is obviously a unified scoring criteria which we adhere to. And obviously the main emphasis is on striking and grappling, the effectiveness of that.
Yeah.
So you have to look at that as an even keel.
Okay.
And whoever's got the offensive techniques, or is obviously that's your first kind of criteria, and then you've got a sliding scale straight from that. Okay, but the first thing you look at is the effectiveness of their striking and grappling, which is on like an even par.
Yeah.
And then you have to determine, which one outweighs the other, determining on what happens in the actual fight, and the action during that round.
Yeah.
So it kind of like works from there, and then the sliding scale works back if everything is even.
Okay.
Which is very rare. Right. It's very rare you'll get a fight which is like really even on each round. Someone's always gonna get the upper hand in one position or not.
And what's it like in general to be a ref, standing in the cage? Is it difficult to stay focused with all the noise going on and the lights and everything?
Reffing is one thing. I've never reffed a UFC fight. Judging, which you obviously sit outside the cage. I think when you first start, you can get, not influenced, but you can see why people can get swayed by the hometown crowd.
Yeah, yeah.
But once you're really experienced, you pay no notice to it whatsoever. You can't let the crowd influence your decision. You should be doing your job if that's the case. You've got to take it very, very seriously, and you've just got to get yourself into the zone and kind of like watch each part of that fight, each part of that round, and break it down. And you haven't got a lot of time to actually write your scores down, because they always collect the scorecards in between rounds. Yeah. So it's not like at the end of the fight, there's collect your scorecards in between each round. So you haven't really got a lot of time to dwell on it, to think about, what did this guy do? You've got to have a very quick mind and see the positions. And you can, like, by me being an ex-fighter as well, I think that helps, because I've been in a lot of those positions myself. So you can gauge it, judging by your own experience as well,
Yeah. So you already talked a little bit about the scoring. Is it mostly like for the like offensive, the offense things people do, like if they punch and how effective it is, they get scored on that? But is it also like for defense? Like especially I believe with like wrestling and Jiu Jitsu on the ground in the cage, then those things are like really effective in a defensive way as well?
Yeah, there's no criteria for defense. Okay. So you don't get scored on defense.
Oh, really? Okay.
You don't get scored. Yeah. Yeah. So like, example, if somebody, you got two guys on the ground, one guy's in guard. Yeah. The guy in guard throws up a triangle, and the other guy defends a triangle. You don't give him any more points for defending the triangle. No,
it's more like okay. Yeah, and of course also like
obviously if the guy's offensive and the triangle's close, you've got to take that into consideration. But if he throws a triangle up and it's nowhere near close, then nothing really happens on that scoring part, because he's not got close to attacking it, finishing the submission, But in terms of defense, or if someone throws a jab and someone slips a jab and doesn't counter, then there's no points for him slipping a jab.
No, it's just less points for the guy not being as effective enough.
So it is more for the offense and what sort of effectiveness that you actually apply on your opponent.
Yeah. Okay. So if you're like, is it then correct that most of if you're like the more aggressive guy during the fight, you usually end up winning the judge's score?
Not really, because
it's most effective.
So if you've got two guys on the feet and one guy's coming forward really aggressive and the other guy's stepping off and counter punching him, then he's doing the more effective striking, the guy who's stepping back and counter punching. It's not so much, if the guy's just balling forward and throwing big shots, or conversely, if it's on the ground, you've got a guy on top and he's inside guard and he's throwing big shots. They're not really landing, but the other guy's defending it, but then trying to set up submissions, or he's striking effectively off his back, then I would give the points to the guy striking effectively off his back, or the one attempting the submissions. It doesn't necessarily, if you're super aggressive, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to win that fight. That's why you have to have a trained eye to be able to see what is actually effective and what is just aggression. Just aggression on its own without doing anything with it, landing shots or
I can especially imagine like the crowd is usually like maybe more in favor of the aggressive guy that he should have gotten the decision. But okay, it's nice to know.
Yeah, you were earlier talking about also back in the days where you were fighting yourself. Well, somebody like yourself, for example, mainly people having a striking background, and at some point, of course, the Gracie started out with it, but especially here in Europe, the grappling part kind of had to catch up a bit. When was it that you really saw that the gap being closed, when jiu-jitsu and grappling really became fully integrated with the MMA game?
Well, I mean, obviously, when I first sort of recognized and watched the UFC 1 or UFC 2, I could see straight away. I thought to myself, I don't really know how to fight unless I can fight on the ground. So, just personally, I went to the nearest resource I could find at the time, because there wasn't any Brazilian jiu-jitsu schools around. There was literally none. And tried to make the best of what I could, and try and pick a lot of knowledge from my instructor there. Obviously watched a lot of tape and stuff, and I used to get together with a few guys and train in my garage and in the gym as well, and we used to try and just put parts of it together. And I didn't start sort of official Brazilian jiu-jitsu until I think it was around 2004.
Yeah, but when did you see it, like, in the sport in general, especially in the UK, on the higher level of MMA and UFC matches?
Right. I would probably say probably around 2012, something like that. You could see like the UK guys starting to catch up, with their jiu-jitsu as well, because most of the guys who come from the UK were just boxers or kickboxers, and they had no wrestling. And the grappling and stuff, and I'm pretty honest about it, but I think it's probably around 2012 or so you could just start to see the shift. And someone like Michael Bisping, you could see how good he started to become, and eventually he could become a world champion as well. So and he was very well rounded, even though he was mainly a striker, but he could defend. He could scramble really well. He could use the fence to get up. He was hard to hold down. Those sort of skills have started to sort of cross over into UK MMA, I would say. Yeah, roughly around 2012, something like that.
Right. Do you think it's easier for people to transition to MMA who already have a solid BJJ background, or the other way around for stand-up fighters to learn jiu-jitsu?
I would categorically say that if you come from a jiu-jitsu background, or especially a wrestling background, your transition to MMA is a hell of a lot quicker than it is from someone coming from a striking background. I don't know what it is, but it's for me, it's a lot easier to teach striking than it is to teach jiu-jitsu, and we'll get good at it for sure. It takes years to get good at jiu-jitsu, and that's something that a lot of strikers will, for years, try to get to, and may not even get there. I mean, I've been training jiu-jitsu for a long time, and I still don't think my jiu-jitsu is that great. I'm still playing catch up and stuff, but right. If I had my time again, I would definitely start as a grappler first, and then transition my striking off it, because to get good at striking, for MMA purposes, not for like K1 or Muay Thai, for MMA purposes, to get reasonable at striking takes it's a lot quicker than getting good at jiu-jitsu or MMA jiu-jitsu.
Right. And where do you see that, now with jiu-jitsu being and grappling and wrestling being much more integrated in MMA, and you see, well, basically most fighters are pretty all-round, especially people that have been training all these disciplines since a young age. What do you expect if we look 10 years from now? How will the sport develop?
Well, I think the sport's developing obviously globally, but particularly in this country, you have specific MMA gyms now. When I had my time, I didn't. So I had to go one place for kickboxing, one place to do some boxing, and I had to go and see my wrestling coach in Bristol. Now you've got many of those skills within one gym. So my gym, for example, we train everything from kickboxing, boxing, jiu-jitsu, MMA jiu-jitsu, wrestling. We train everything pretty much in-house. And, there's times I bring in other coaches as well who are specialists in their field. So I tend to do that, but that's how, the this country is actually developing, because you've got specific MMA gyms now,
Right.
whereas before you didn't. So obviously, if someone's a boxer, like a boxing coach, what does he know about takedowns? The difference in distance and the way you box for MMA is different to how you box, in a regular ring.
Yeah, yeah.
So obviously you have with MMA coaches now, you can fuse the gap. So this is how you box for MMA. You get certain tools from boxing, but you have to apply it differently for MMA, and it's the same with jiu-jitsu. MMA jiu-jitsu is not the same as gi jiu-jitsu, but gi jiu-jitsu will actually help in your positioning to be more successful. Funny enough, So, but you've got to know the differences between sort of like the MMA application and the sort of traditional application. And obviously, if you're a former fighter, especially, and you've done it yourself, it will help to actually make those transitions.
Yeah. Now you get a generation of people who have been brought up in that integrated gym and then start teaching others or coaching others.
Yeah, because the information's there now, isn't it? Whereas before, in my time, it wasn't really there. I had to go and seek it elsewhere, I had to seek it, and then kind of like put it together myself. But now, obviously, the information's there. The people who have like been pioneers in this country of UK MMA, they're all pretty much coaches now. A lot of the guys that I used to either fight against or used to be in my division in the on the circuit when I was fighting, they're all coaches now.
Yeah.
Even up to John Kavanagh. Actually, me and him fought on the same fight card.
Yeah,
and he's like Conor McGregor's coach. So we all come from that original sort of group, from the early 2000s, really.
I think it's really nice to see like the upcoming of the more hybrid fighters instead of the specialists. Of course, the specialists were nice because you had you could do the nice matchmaking of like a striker versus a grappler, things like that. But I think all in all, for the sport, it's better if the hybrid fighters are coming up.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
We talked about it a bit earlier on, but if you could build a young MMA fighter from scratch, what disciplines would you have him train and maybe in what level of importance and in what order?
Well, I'm doing that as we speak with my guys. I mean, all of my kids, very, very strong emphasis on the ground. Their jiu-jitsu and wrestling they train that more than anything else. And then, I make them very good strikers, not highly advanced, but they're very functional strikers. But for me, always 100%, I will always make sure that their ground game is solid before anything else. Ground game and wrestling.
Yeah.
Ground game and wrestling.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. Do you see that missing with people that have been predominantly doing jiu-jitsu a lot? The wrestling part, the takedown part?
Yes, to a point. But to be fair, I think, especially in this country, a lot of you have, if you're, because my gym is predominantly an MMA gym and we have jiu-jitsu within our gym, so kind of like my adaptation of jiu-jitsu is kind of like MMA jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
So obviously I incorporate a lot of wrestling within my drills that I, teach my students. Other people who may not have like any sort of wrestling background will probably go either like a judo type sort of takedown, which is again absolutely great. I've trained with many judo guys and they're absolute beasts. So I think it's very, very important that you do have some sort of takedown game. I mean, if you're going to defend yourself, you can't sit and pull guard. You have to be able to. If someone throws a punch at you, you've got to be able to take them down. Or control them. To some point. So you've got to have some sort of wrestling game. I think is very important.
Definitely.
Most UK gyms do have some sort of MMA content. A lot of them are based out of MMA gyms anyway. So from what I find, a lot of the gyms, jiu-jitsu gyms, have got good takedowns because they obviously a lot of them cross over from MMA as well.
Yeah, I think that's really good.
Yeah. Time for some Shark Tank.
I think so. Yeah.
You wanna?
No, you can do it.
Right. Yeah, we have some quick questions, some A/B questions, or Just come up with the first thing that pops into your mind. Submission or knockout?
Anything that works, anything that gets the tap or the ref to step in. So either doesn't matter.
Yeah. Of course, the next question is a bit a matter of the time in your life, probably the phase that you're in, but coaching or fighting?
Definitely coaching now. Always wanted to be a fighter, loved to compete. Unfortunately, with injuries and stuff, I had to step away from that, but I would do it all again, to be fair.
Right.
But yeah, for me now, I get way more satisfaction from coaching and seeing my students do really well, more than what I ever did, which is absolutely why I'm there, so.
Is that because it concerns more than just yourself and you're actually expanding that kind of power, let's say?
No, I just like to see people do well. I've got a lot of experience. I've trained under some great coaches, like my coach now, for example, Jimmy Johnson and Andy Costello and Luke Costello. They're just a fountain of knowledge, and I've been really privileged to be taught by some really fantastic martial artists. And what I would like to do is obviously just pass that down, pass that down to the next generation, pass that down to my students who are under me now, pass that across to my fighters, my experience as well. But I've just had such a privilege to have trained with such high level and nice people as well. I just want to give, my students that sort of experience as well and just do my best for them.
Yeah, I get that. Favorite technique?
When I was kickboxing, I used to like spinning back kick. That used to be one of my favorite signature moves.
Kick them against the cage.
Yeah. Jiu-jitsu wise, I would say probably armbar or Kimura is probably my go-to sort of submissions, really.
Yeah. Weight cutting in MMA?
Dangerous. I think a lot of people don't do it right. I think a lot of people walk around too big, and then they have to cut dangerous amounts of weight. To make, just because they want to be bigger in the cage. I really do think there should be like a cap on how much weight you can cut. Your weight should be taken at the start of your fight camp, and then that should determine what weight class you should be fighting in. I'm not a great fan of yo-yo weight cutting. Never have been. I've never done it myself, to that degree. I only used to walk around 3 or 4 kilos over the weight that I fought, and just by your natural diet.
Right.
And up in your cardio, just weight used to just come off. But obviously it's a different time now, and everybody wants to get that little bit of advantage by cutting as much weight as possible and being as big as you can in the cage, or on the mat. I don't think the weight cutting is anywhere near as bad in jiu-jitsu, obviously, but you're not being hit in the head, or anything, so most people, especially my students, I always say to them, if they're doing a jiu-jitsu competition, don't bother cutting any weight, just clean your diet up maybe, and if you're over, then just go to the next weight category. You shouldn't be stressing about cutting weight, especially for jiu-jitsu, in my opinion. Totally. And my MMA guys, what I try to do is, especially with my amateurs, because I've got a team of amateurs and pros. But my amateurs, I always say, you walk around weight is what you fight at, because most of the amateur fights you weigh in on the same day. So there's no point in trying to cut a load of weight and then you're weighing on the same day, So I just say to them, don't cut any weight, just fight at the weight that you train at, So it's less stress on your body, less stress on your mind.
Better results probably as well, especially on the same day.
Yeah.
What's your favorite? It's a kind of two-way question: competitor, fighter. So jiu-jitsu, MMA.
I would say I was probably a better MMA fighter. I don't really like sort of looking at my skill set, really. I just know what I can do, and I'm quite confident in my skill set. But I've competed more in MMA than I have jiu-jitsu, and that's just simply due to injuries I had at the end of my MMA career.
Yeah.
And then obviously, even if I wanted to compete in jiu-jitsu, I've still got, 2 bad knees. I had my hip replaced last year. So, I'm not on my sort of what I was in my early 30s, for example. Because obviously just by the sheer fact, one, you get older, two, I've had so many surgeries, and obviously, Father Time, you can't go back in time, Father Time is undefeated.
Of course, yeah. And if you look at other competitors and fighters, what are your favorite ones at the moment?
What, MMA fighters or jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, maybe one of each category.
MMA fighters, I would say the best that I've particularly seen is probably GSP, because he was so well-rounded.
Yeah.
Student of the game, real martial artist. You didn't ever see him talk smack or anything like that. He was the whole package,
Yeah.
I would say him. Jiu-jitsu wise, there's so many people I respect. But I still watch. I don't think he competes anymore, but he is kind of like above my head coach, Jimmy, Fernando Terrere.
Oh, yeah.
He's absolutely. I watch his matches all the time. I've got his DVD collection, and he's come and done a seminar at my academy as well.
Oh, nice.
Last year, and he was a really nice guy. His technique, I'm just in awe of the guy. He's done so much. Very, very, very good. And he's so humble as well. He couldn't be a nicer guy.
Yeah.
Which goes a long way for me as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. What's your favorite jiu-jitsu gi?
I have many. My tatami estilo is probably my most comfortable, but I have so many different gis. But I do like that gi because it's nice rigid collar, and it fits just right. It's just a really, really nice tight fit on me as well.
Yeah.
But I would probably say that. Yeah.
And in summer, do you have different preferences, winter, summer, like a lighter gi?
Yeah, I always wear a lightweight gi.
Yeah.
Again, I pretty much wear tatami or Valor. We have my academy gis are Valor, and they do a very nice summer gi, very light.
Yeah.
So that's pretty nice. If it gets too hot, we just train no gi anyway. So.
Right.
So yeah.
What's the number one thing on your bucket list that's still not crossed off yet?
With everything that I've personally experienced and done myself, if I could get one of my juniors to become either an adult MMA or an adult BJJ, IBJJF champion or something, that would be absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
Very difficult to do.
Yeah.
But you've got to have dreams. Yeah.
Well, they have the years. So
yes, they do. Yeah. I mean, they're doing well.
It's just a matter of time, right?
Yeah, I mean, they're doing really well. So I took my son over to the Pan Kids over in California in March.
Yeah.
In February, and he got bronze medal.
Oh, that's really
and the
nice.
guy, the kid who beat him, was the one who won the gold. So he only lost one match.
Yeah.
So
what division was he
that
in?
was absolutely fun. That was fantastic. Yeah, so he won the bronze. My son won the bronze.
Yeah.
So, and that, I'm literally coaching my son, and you've got people like Andre Galvao coaching this, all the guys from the Mendes brothers, coaching them. And I look at like what all they've achieved, and there's just me and my little academy in England, and I'm still on the mat with them,
Yeah.
So,
do you think we have all the necessary ingredients in not just at your academy, but like if we talk about Europe, because many people maybe have that idea, like, if you want to be Jiu-Jitsu world champion, you need to train in California, or you need to go to Brazil or something. Do you think we have what it takes to make those champions?
Well, a lot of the Brazilians are actually over here teaching as well, aren't
Right.
they? So they are the source, Yeah, so obviously that's where it all comes from. So they are the actual source. So I think the knowledge is there. I just think it's probably the quality of training partner which if you go to, like, I went over to AOJ in California, the Mendes Brothers Academy.
Yeah.
And we went over there, and there was like, I did a class, there was like 10, 15 black belts on the mat, you know, and they were all champions, you know, and like even the kid, you know, it's just unbelievable.
Yeah.
You're not going to replicate that here for years, you know?
No.
So obviously with those guys, because they're training, you know, with that high quality day in, day out, obviously they're going to be the best in the world. You know, it's going to take a long time for like the UK guys to be able to do the same, you know?
Yeah. Right. So that's a matter of time, but
it's just time, isn't it?
Yeah. What's your favorite sport outside of martial arts? I know you're a very athletic person overall.
I used to play a lot of sport. I play a lot of sport with my kids now, and I encourage them to play all sports, really, not just specialize in jiu-jitsu, because I've got my son and daughter trained as well. So I used to like cricket as well. I used to play a lot of cricket as a kid, and football as well. You know, I don't really follow any sport now because all of my time is spent either at my academy or here at home with my kids and stuff. And when the kids take over the TV, I got no chance of watching anything, you know. So you just don't get no time to watch anything, you know.
Yeah.
So I generally just do what they do, really, and I just try and train. I just try and train my kids or bring my kids up to be well-rounded, like human beings as well, not just this jiu-jitsu or nothing, you know. But they can be, like, you know, some parents are like that. You know, I try and obviously, like, you know, we come from a family of martial artists and stuff, but I encourage my kids to, yes, you've got to love your martial arts. Martial arts is your number one sort of sport, but obviously if you want to play football or you want to do cross country or you want to do athletics, then, you know, go and do that as well, you know, have a balanced life, you know.
Yeah.
And then you can make that choice later because they're only young, you know.
Right, for sure. Yeah. What's the you kind of already described what your number one thing is that you still want to scratch off your bucket list. What's your proudest achievement up till now?
I have a few. From myself, what I've done as a sort of fighter myself was being the first Cage Warriors lightweight champion.
Yeah.
Which was you know, very good achievement at the time.
Yeah, for sure.
As a coach, probably having one of my fighters, which was Shay Mills, fight his first UFC fight in Nottingham, and he knocked the guy out in 36 seconds and won knockout of the night, actually bonus.
Nice.
That was a really great night, you know. It couldn't have gone any better for him, you know, 'cause first fight on a big stage, and he goes and knocks the guy out in 30 seconds, you know.
Yeah.
So as a coach, that was that one, and then probably my son winning his first MMA fight, which was last year, which was obviously a lot of pressure on him because I'm his dad. It was on my promotion as well, because I run a MMA promotion like for amateurs and stuff. So a lot of pressure there. He didn't seem that nervous, but I was in bits, to be honest, because I'm his dad, you know, and I always want to protect him.
Yeah.
But he went out there and he submitted the kid who was 2 years older than him, actually. He submitted him in 20 seconds or something with a rear naked choke. So that was a really proud moment, you know. Hopefully we can get back to training and he can like get another fight soon.
Yeah.
Definitely, yeah. We all we got back to training in the Netherlands last week.
Brilliant.
So I think it also started a little bit earlier here than in the UK.
Yes.
So I really hope, you guys can follow on that soon.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the government are going to give some sort of statement this week.
All right.
So with everything else that they've opened up, I'm hoping that obviously the gyms will, you know, they'll probably be governed by how many people you have in and distance and all this sort of thing, you know.
Yeah.
But you know, we need to get these gyms open because a lot of people need it in their lives, you know.
Yeah. Last question: what rash guard size do you wear? Especially the ones that we were talking about earlier.
Medium. And the one that Phil sent me, was absolutely fantastic. It's such a nice no gi top. It's such a nice rash guard. It's really comfortable, thick, durable, and I was rolling with it the other day with my son actually, and it's just felt so comfortable,
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely recommend your brand.
Yeah, I was just asking. I'll send a size M of the short sleeve version over as well. I think you had the long sleeve one. That you can try that out for summer as well. I'll send it over to James and Phil, and then they can make sure you get it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Well, no worries. Thank you a lot for your time and sharing your experiences and your wisdom on both the teaching of the kids and also from the MMA UFC judging part. So thanks a lot, and we'll hope to have the Trojan open soon. Everybody listening to this, first of all, before you log off, click the subscribe button, but also check out the website of Trojan, and maybe if you're in that area, bring your kids there, or as a parent, maybe join yourself or an adult, of course, to the adult classes. So Paul, thanks again, and we looking forward to follow your team and all their achievements.
Okay, thank you very much, guys. Thanks for the opportunity. Good to speak to you guys.
Thank you too.
Have a great day, Paul.
And you guys. Cheers.